To order. Agenda item number 2, the consent agenda. I am seeking a motion for the consent agenda pertaining to appointments, additional staff, placement staff, contract increases, separations, resignations, contract decreases, terminations, leaves of absence, and retirements. So at this point in time, I'm seeking a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Agenda item number 3. I've got a presentation by Josh and possibly Tabitha, if she's here. We'll review the recent state and federal decisions that have budgetary impact for Wausau School District and review options for possible budgetary changes as a result of the funding update. So with that, Josh, I'll pass it off to you.
Thank you so much. Tabitha's at the job fair, so we'll see if she pops in. A number of these things we went through before. That the state did pass their biennial budget. The $325 per pupil increase does remain, but there will be no increase to state aid for the district for that. The special education reimbursement rate did increase, and some reduction in title funds, and then increased cost of open enrollment. So when you factor in all those things, these are our best guess at this point for the budget impact of these things. About $2 million increase, and then a little less for a reduction in title funds and open enrollment increase, and an additional high-cost special education rate reimbursement. The net change for the district is about $1.3 million. So that is $1.3 million in additional revenue that we were not expecting as a district. So we presented to you in May a balanced preliminary budget, approximately. And so if you add 1.3 to our revenues, add 1.3 to our expenditures, it would still be a balanced budget. I've got a rough slide in here following this that explains that it's not actually an increase to our revenue limit, but it was the cleanest way to show it. So just wanted to show you that if everything else stayed the same and it was net positive, it's a reimbursement. It's not an add to the revenue limit. But what this would look like, how it would net out, is that we'd still initial budget in May, pretty much a balanced budget. If you increase the revenues and the expenditures by somewhere between 1.2 and 1.3 million, it would still remain relatively a balanced budget. But that is special education aid that is increasing. I think it's important to note that we, at least for the last 3 or 4 years, have presented you with a deficit budget. And I think it's probably considerably longer than that, but I was not here. And so we projected that our expenses would be more than our revenues. And in general, that's worked out just fine for the district. We've come out ahead or even. But the last 2 years, we've had pretty significant health insurance overages. We're hoping that we've addressed that this year. But I think it's important to know that we are presenting you a balanced budget. We're not asking you at this point in this moment to pursue a deficit budget. These are best guesses, but that's what we know at this time. Anything you want to add on that?
The only thing I might add, and it just came out, is we just saw an article indicating that the federal government is going to be releasing at least some of that roughly $500,000 of title funds that they were previously indicating they were withholding. We are still waiting for more details on that, and maybe you covered that before I came in. I'm sorry I was late. I was in an interview for a vacant position that we have upstairs. So it's possible we may even still see more of those title funds coming back in, just so that everybody's aware of that.
Just for clarity on that, I wish last time we talked about it would have been more clear. So the title funds are federal dollars. They are separate of our biennial budget. So the state dollars are different than those title funds. So when we talk about those two things, they're mutually exclusive and not tied into one another.
The one other thing to note on that is that this was budgeted as if we would continue to do all of that $512,000 worth of programming and service. So we factored that in, so that every dollar of that may not be realized. Hopefully we've budgeted conservatively in that way. So last time we were together, we talked to the board about a number of potential uses for additional revenue. Additional salary adjustments, deferred maintenance, fund balance. Just to refresh everyone, CPI for salary negotiations was 2.95%. All districts that I know of around us, I think, went with an even 3.
Yes.
And at this point, we've approved 1.5% for salary increases. The board did give us some feedback that if additional funding were to become available, to bring that back in front of the board with the option for what that might look like in terms of staff salaries. So our proposal at this time is to use the increased revenue from special education funding to move the staff salary budget authority in line with CPI, 3%, from the previously approved 1.5. $800,000 is roughly equivalent to 1% of salary changes, so this would be about a $1.2 million add to the expenditures for the district, but we do have that additional revenue.
I would just add a piece of detail just to add to what Josh shared, and that is that if the board were to move forward with approval of that budget proposal, then the intention from our end of things would be to implement that with our support staff right away, because we did move forward and implemented the 1.5% already that you gave us authority for. We would make that adjustment and appropriate back pay, and we would then use that budget authority with regard to negotiations with WEA, because that's a negotiated process and not one that we can just specify. So.
Well, that's a good addition. Let's go to questions that we may have. So, any questions over here to the left? Corey?
Because this is 2 different topics than what we actually discussed.
Mm-hmm.
And your slide kind of reminded me of that. I wish we would have talked about that earlier. So, one, the extra $87,000, what are you doing with?
The extra $87,000.
Well, you have 1.297 approximately, right? That's what is in your one slide.
Yep.
You're saying that it's 1.2500 for staff.
Yep.
What are we doing with the extra?
So I would say that, number one, these numbers are all guesstimates to the best
So
of
it
our
should stay in the
knowledge.
fund balance in case something.
Yeah, and
Balance?
I would say that it would just be part of the budget proposal at this time.
Okay.
We only have our preliminary budget adopted in May. You'll get another budget presentation in August and September, and then the final one in October. I know it's everyone's favorite time of year, mine too. So these numbers could change a little bit by then. So I wouldn't say designating. We don't have a designated purpose for that at this time.
I think it's also important for anybody listening to know that even if you calculated it to the 0, and even if we pass a final budget that is right, exactly, perfectly balanced, it won't actually end up that way throughout the year. That's why we either lose a little or add a little to our fund balance every year. Because when you've got $140-something million, you're going to be up or down
Right.
tens of thousands of dollars every year, no matter how careful you are with it. So the fund balance is always going to go up or down a little bit each year.
Right. Historically, this district's done a fantastic job with fund balance in the last 2 years because of some health insurance overages. Our fund balance has gone down, so it just illuminates that up and down that we have.
Corey, you had a second question that you
Well-
wanted to follow up with?
It's kind of a separate topic because the 325 per pupil increase that that every district is now allowed to levy more for isn't part of this conversation.
Yeah.
That conversation is when are we going to raise our tax, or how are we going to handle that? And that's a completely separate agenda item to have that discussion. Although I figure it will come up maybe before October,
I'm
right?
sure it
And
will.
we set our limit at whatever point in the next couple months.
Well, it's a good question to come up with right now so that you know we're interested in finding out, and then you can come back to let us know as a group here, where are we at with it?
Right. It's a great question.
The
Noel and I were-
perspective, the
Yep.
point is, Josh, the perspective that I was thinking about all weekend was that we were changing our levy style and things in order to be asked today about changing staff wages. And that's not the case. This is money that's coming from the state as a reimbursement for special ed. So because we're not taking that amount out of Fund 10, putting in special ed fund, right, we have that available.
Right.
So it's not new dollars and things, so I'm less concerned over it at this point. But when we have the 325 discussion, need to be flushed out quite a bit more for myself.
Okay. Yeah, happy to do that. Thank you for that feedback.
Over here, questions? Lance, any follow-up?
No, just a point of order. I know that the teacher negotiation is separate from this, but just because of the way it was presented as impacted, I'm going to abstain from it. So if anybody's wondering why I'm abstaining, even though this doesn't actually vote on the teacher raises, that's why.
Thank you for clarifying that. Appreciate that. All right, if there are no more questions, I'm seeking a motion to accept the recommendation as presented by administration.
So moved. Second.
Any follow-up questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Abstain.
Motion- With one abstention, I'll get it out yet. Abstention, I appreciate that, thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 4. I'm seeking a motion to enter into closed session for the board to discuss the sale of property with our broker that, if discussed in open session, would harm the district's competitive interest. This is according to statutes 19.5, 1E.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Sarah Brock,
Yes.
John Creasher,
Yes.
Jennifer Paoli,
Yes.
Jane Roosh,
Yes.
Corey Sellers.
Yes.
Lance Trollope.
Yes.
Jim Boucher.
Yes. Thank you very much. All right, at this point in time, I'll have the motion read off.
I move to accept the offer on the sale of Hewitt, Texas as discussed in closed session.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And
Next motion.
I move to accept the offer on the sale of Grant as discussed in closed session.
So moved.
Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I believe we are done. I'm seeking a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for your time.